Crystal Waters, It Began in Europe. Book 1 in the Crystal Waters series by Diana Rozevskis. Chapter 6. Dangerous Waters. Herman and the children planned their journey in secret in the following weeks. Now, with all the preparations finished, they were ready for their voyage to the ancient land of Crete. Herman explained to the others that the journey to get there always took longer than returning. "It's about a 13-hour journey with all the countries we must pass through," he said. He grabbed his backpack from the understairs cupboard. "And you say we travel down all the rivers along the way?" asked Grace. "But I've noticed on your map that not all the rivers are connected, so how do we get from one to the other?" "Well, it's a mystery how it all works, but there's a lot of help from our Iris, good lass she is. Anyway, you'll just have to wait and see," said Herman with a smile. "So does Iris help us to get back home then, Herman?" asked Emma. "Yep, like I said, it's almost instant. Think of it like one big telescope, elongated on our journey out, but retracted small on the way back," he said. "Right then, are we all ready?" Everyone nodded. "Let's go then." Across the gravel courtyard and around to the front of the house, they all went. Seba trotted alongside Herman. Although Herman was tall, Seba still came up to his waist in height. They all entered through the main front door. "Have you got it?" whispered Herman as he turned to Emma. She nodded and stood a letter on the hall table with "Mum" written on it. She hated hurting anyone, but it was the only way. The letter explained where they were going, but Emma knew Mum wouldn't understand why. "Don't worry, lass. If we're not killed on the journey, I'm sure your mam will finish the job when we get back," chuckled Herman. "Oh, thanks, Herman. That makes me feel a whole lot better," said Emma, and despite her worries, she smiled. They all set off again, past the library and down the metal spiral staircase to the cellar. They soon found themselves standing before the oak-carved door. Herman retrieved the handheld mirror and the clear selenite crystal from his bag. He placed the crystal on the mirror, directed it towards 1976 BC on the dial, and flipped it over. They all gathered around and peered in. As the mist rolled in across the reflection, the words came into view as they had done before. "Efraristo," said Herman. "Bless you," responded Emma. "It means thank you in Greek," sniggered Robert. "So you're fluent in Greek now?" sulked Emma. "I guess I'm brainy like that." He grinned. "I guess this helps, of course," said Grace. She took a Greek dictionary out of his back pocket and handed it to Emma with a smile. Herman placed the mirror on the door and uttered the password. "Efraristo." Beams of light shot out from the cracks of the door, and it creaked open. On the other side stood Iris, and she smiled at them all. "Your boat awaits you, my dear friends. The fate of Crete on you depends." Iris pointed down towards the river through the trees. Emma stepped out from the cellar doorway into the woods she knew well. They were near their favourite fishing spot, by the river. She looked back over her shoulder. It was amazing. Despite being half a mile away, she could see the dusty wine racks in Grand's cellar through the open doorway. She could hear the nearby waterfall. She smelled an earthy sweetness in the air as a breeze brushed her cheeks. She listened to the damp leaves squelch underfoot and suddenly felt cold. It was a lovely, sunny, warm day back there beyond the cellar. But here, in this world, the skies were grey and were threatening rain. She put on her jacket that she had tied around her waist and shivered. "Do not dither. No time to waste. The time has come. We must make haste." As Herman closed the door, Emma noticed the selenite crystal jutting out from its back, emitting a bright glow. Herman held out his hand, and with a soft pop, an identical crystal fell into it. He placed it in one of his deep pockets. "Why do we need another crystal, Herman?" asked Emma. "It'll guide us back home, look," he said as he took the crystal back out. Both crystals glowed, and the one in his palm spun towards the other crystal in the door. "The crystals act like a compass, glowing when they're near each other." Herman smiled as Emma's mouth fell open. "Never get lost, see? Unless you lose the crystal, of course." Iris led them all down to the river where a huge boat awaited them. The vessel was at least 60 feet long. The dark cedar wood was decorated at the bow with a fearsome creature. The boat was covered in creature scales from bow to stern, ending in a curved tail towards the bridge. Huge masts and sails towered above them. Emma realized that a boat of this size could not sail down such a small river. It must be magic, she thought. She had a feeling it was not the only strange sight she was going to see that day. She was right. As they approached, she noticed the boat hovering inches above the river's surface. Engraved deep on the side of the ship was the name Epikinduna Nera. "Herman, what does that mean?" said Emma as she pointed to the words. "That is Greek for dangerous waters," said Herman, smiling at Emma's shocked expression. "Don't worry, lass. It means the opposite of what you think. It means it keeps you safe and will never sink." Herman patted her shoulder. "Right then, you lot. Let's not hang about, all aboard." They ascended the boat's wooden ramp, and when the last person boarded it, it simply vanished. "Amazing," Grace said as she looked over the side. She was thrilled to see 10 black oars ready for their journey. Herman strode up the steps to the boat's bridge. Behind the wheel, an old man no one had noticed was there. He seemed to blend into his background, as if he were part of the vessel. The man was weathered and dark-skinned, his hair and beard unkempt. He wore a torn ankle-length tunic that matched his skin. Herman placed a gold coin from a small brown leather pouch into the boatman's hand. The boatman took the coin and put it in his pouch. Herman then jumped down the steps to join the others who were all watching. "You have to pay the boatman a gold Olbus coin. His name is Charin, and he'll take us wherever we need to go." As the boat set in motion, Emma, Grace and Robert hurried to the edge, waving goodbye to Iris. She waved back at them from the shore as the colossal oars began to sway without a sound. "Your journey now has just begun. Godspeed to each and every one. One call from you, I come to thee. If danger comes and you need me." Iris's words grew faint as the boat turned a bend in the river, and she disappeared. Herman knelt and retrieved something from his bag. He then walked over to Grace and smiled before handing her a book. "This is your Gran's old diary from 2001. We finally found it after searching for years. It was tucked away in the attic." Grace took the book and smiled. Herman sat down on the deck and rested his back against a large wooden mast. The children sat beside him. They knew Herman well. He had something important to say. "As you know, 10 years ago, Gran left her hairbrush in Crete, and it's now causing problems with monsters. Now that we've discovered her diary, it could guide us to where we need to go to find the brush." He turned to Grace. "I understand your love for books and your ability to figure things out. Therefore, I'd like to offer you the job to navigate." Grace beamed as Emma and Robert nodded and smiled in agreement. The children returned to the side of the boat and looked out. They recognized the woods surrounding Foyersby River. On their left, they spotted the edges of Stuart Park, the birthplace of Captain Cook. Emma felt like a modern-day Cook, excited and nervous about exploring the unknown. It wasn't long before they turned left and flowed into the River Tees. Middlesbrough's town underwent a notable change as the smog began to roll in. Emma noticed the Riverside football stadium wasn't there. Not built yet, she suspected. She knew then they were slowly going back in time. Herman said the journey through 13 eras would take 13 hours, a new era every hour. It's hard to imagine that Middlesbrough was once a tiny fishing village 2 centuries ago. The discovery of iron ore in the Cleveland Hills changed everything and led to the growth of the steel and iron industry, making it a town. Her words felt like they had been plucked straight out of a book. They looked back down the river. Behind them was the transporter bridge. When did they build the transporter? I didn't think it had been built yet, said Emma. The transporter bridge opened in 1911. We're in the 1940s by the look of it during World War II, said Grace, pointing out a nearby school. Children were playing in the playground. The school children appeared well groomed in their uniforms. The girls were in grey pinafore dresses and white ankle socks, and the boys were in white shirts and long grey shorts. They were all engaged in fun activities such as marbles and skipping, clack, clack, clack. The teacher's wooden gas rattle quieted the children's laughter. Then, as one, they all put on their gas masks. As the boat rounded the bend, Emma heard a bell chime, indicating that it was now safe for the children to remove their masks. Are we going to go through Scotland? I've never seen Scotland before, asked Robert. No, that's the route we'd take on our way to Iceland, said Herman. And your gran told me you had to go through Wales to get to Ireland. That's somewhere I'd like to go. Suddenly there was a loud noise above them. Looking up, they saw an old warplane with an enormous wingspan. Herman let out a low whistle through his teeth. Wow, an old Whitley. You can tell by the nose-down front part. Probably heading for RAF Leeming, he said with a wide beam on his face. A woman on a bicycle wearing a brown skirt and black coat passed by Home Guard soldiers carrying rifles. She had a rolled-up hairstyle and a black hat with a large artificial flower. Herman, Emma called over to him, I've noticed the people on the riverside don't seem to see us. Why's that? I don't know. Part of the magic, I expect, said Herman. Maybe it's true what they say that people only see what they want to see. As they journeyed, they arrived at Yarm Town. They saw the iconic town hall and Georgian-style homes adorned with pan-tile roofs. In the centre was a quaint cobbled square and the Yarm Methodist Church. As they left town, they travelled through wooded areas and by a few luxurious properties. The river soon curved towards the south. Herman came over to where the children were standing. This is where it's going to get good. Wait and see. Ah, here we go, he said as the boat began to glow. As they sailed towards the shore, the boat lifted them out of the water and over green fields, hedgerows and farms. They were flying. In no time, they descended to the River Swale, landing near Langton upon Swale. Emma noticed the changes outside the boat. She looked at her watch. It was past 10 o'clock in the morning. They had been travelling for over an hour now. We're in the Edwardian era now. Look over there, gasped Grace. 2 couples on the riverbank, dressed in white, elegant tea gowns and black tailored suits. The women carried parasols and the men wore straw hats. Further along the path, a group of schoolgirls caught their eye. The girls were being led by their teacher, dressed in all black and wearing a simple, no-nonsense bonnet. Half-moon spectacles and her hair parted down the middle made her look strict. The students trotting along behind wore long white smock dresses and straw bonnets. The River Ure became the River Ouse, leading them to the Victorian era. Emma looked at her watch again and was surprised to see another hour had passed. The boat went under and through the Gothic iron Lendal Bridge. Emma noticed that when a bridge was too low, the masts would glow and pass through it like ghosts through a wall. Emma looked out of the boat and saw the old Victorian city of York. a chocolate shop and cafe called Terry & Sons made her mouth water. A butcher was hanging large pieces of meat on metal hooks inside a shop window. He wore a straw hat, and his large white apron was covered in blood. The children saw black trams drawn by horses ferrying commuters across the bridge. Gran says in her diary that behind the buildings on the right is the first railway station of York. "And look, there, on the left, York Minster," said Grace. And sure enough, when they looked, they all saw the top of the Minster, towering above the city in all its splendour. Further down the river, Grace once again read from Gran's diary. Gran says on the left, "We will now see the Victorian prison building. She says the whole castle site is enclosed, cut off from the city with a huge wall in dark millstone," said Grace. Crossing through Skeldergate Bridge, adorned with stars and roses, they left the city of York behind them. The boat started to glow once more when the River Ouse met the River Trent at Trent Falls. The craft descended the waterfall to continue its downstream voyage. Small towns dotted the River Trent's landscape, workers sowing seeds by hand. Men wore black waistcoats, rolled-up grey shirts, cropped black trousers and cloth caps. Women wore grey dresses, full aprons and large cloth bonnets. A man and woman in distinctive attire were in a nearby rowboat. The man wore knee-high trousers, a frock coat, and a white wig styled in curls with a three-cornered hat. It was their 4th hour into their journey, and it was the Georgian era, the 18th century. Herman thought this was a good era to have lunch. He had brought a bag full of food: sausage rolls, Scotch eggs, chicken drumsticks, and cheese sandwiches washed down with apple juice and strawberries for dessert. As they ate, they watched the 17th century pass them by, the time of the Stuarts. They travelled down the Noinu River and spotted a grand mansion. A carriage with 3 horses raced up the muddy driveway towards it. "Wow, that's a fantastic house. Do you know what it's called?" asked Emma. "Yes, it's all in here in Gran's diary. It's called Cassiabury House and was built in 1546 by Sir Richard Morrison. So, it's been here already for over 100 years. Gran says, sadly, it was demolished in 1927. At Brentford, the Noinu River met the River Thames, and they veered left and headed eastward. It was the 6th hour of their journey, and the 15th and 16th century of the Tudors. They went by the royal gardens and a Carthusian monastery that was one day to become Kew Gardens. Further down the Thames on their left, they saw the old palace of Westminster, in the heart of London. Grace ran over to the side of the boat to get a better look. "Ooh, look, this must be around the 15th century before the fire at Westminster in 1512 destroyed most of the complex. It was the first royal palace built in the 11th century. Can you imagine that was the era of the Normans and William the Conqueror?" Grace beamed. Okay, don't burst a blood vessel," said Emma with a smirk. "You and your books." She shook her head and headed back to where Robert was sitting and had got out a pack of cards. "Want a game of Snap?" she asked. He nodded back with a sniff and pretended he wasn't bothered one way or the other. Grace continued to stare out at the palace with wide eyes. She wanted to remember every detail. 2 square castles guarding a walled garden. The West Castle had a majestic archway and stone staircase for the king's boats. The garden had a towering structure encircled by cloisters leading to courtyards. The main hall featured stained glass windows and slender turret towers. Stone buildings surrounded the cloisters and courtyards on the east and west sides. Grace was enjoying herself. As they turned the bend on the River Thames, Herman joined her and chuckled at her sudden gasp. The Tower of London stood tall and imposing, visually dominating the surrounding area. "Did you know the Tower of London was built by William the Conqueror in 1078, and its early days served as a royal residence?" said Grace. "You're loving this, aren't you?" said Herman, and he rested his large hand on Grace's shoulder and admired the view from the boat. Before long they reached Gravesend, and the River Thames flowed into the North Sea. It was the 7th hour, and they found themselves transported to the Middle Ages. Grace's excitement was palpable as they approached the Shell cottage in Margate. She pointed out every detail while Herman listened. Across the channel to the river, they entered their 8th hour, the 11th century, and the time of the Normans. They were lucky enough to see a fleet of Viking boats, similar vessels to the one they were on now, with huge masts and fearsome beasts carved high at the bow of the boat. Down the Rhine they passed through Belgium, the Netherlands and Germany. Their route was Dusseldorf, Cologne, past Luxembourg, and then past Strasbourg on the French border. It was the 10th hour, and again, it was time for this magical boat to glow. It floated across the land near the border of Switzerland and Liechtenstein to the Danube River. The Danube was magnificent, and the scenic views and waterfalls were breathtaking. They crossed the border to Austria and passed the old town of Vienna, and beyond that, the Czech Republic, then to the border of Slovakia and Hungary and touched the tip of Romania. "I always get mixed up with Slovakia and Slovenia," admitted Emma. "Slovenia is miles away. It's on the other side of Austria." "Everyone knows that numbnut," said Robert. Emma scowled at him and then turned back to look at the scenery. During the Roman era, they passed peasants wearing long brown tunics and tied fabric around their heads. The Iron Age began at the 12th hour. The Danube River divided into 2 branches. Boats sailed from the river to the Adriatic Sea, passing through Italy. "Will we see the Vatican City? I've always wanted to see that," asked Emma. "No, it's on the other side of the country near Rome," replied Grace. The children were near exhaustion, but all the excitement kept them going. Herman had managed to keep them all well fed and watered, and had beaten Emma and Robert at a wicked card game of rummy. Grace, of course, was still looking out. She watched the waves as they splashed against the side of the boat. For a minute, she thought she had seen the tip of Malta, but it was too far away to tell. Emma and Robert came to join her and looked down at the calm, turquoise waters. "Who would have thought it possible, eh? Seeing the sights we have seen today," said Grace. "And in the morning," she yawned in mid-sentence, "we'll have reached the ancient land of Crete." All 3 of them looked out to the horizon as the boat entered the Bronze Age and sailed peacefully into the Mediterranean Sea.